Welcome to Elena, Storyteller, a place where novels, love stories, social psychology, and timeless sayings are retold with deep emotions. Join Elena to listen, empathize, and embark on the emotional journey of today's story.
And now, let's go into today's story. Last Sunset in California. Chapter 1. The Encounter in the Golden Light. California, the land where the golden sun stretches endlessly across highways, where the sky gleams like turquoise and the streets hum with life. To many, it is the American dream. To Daniel Nguyen, a young man from Vietnam, it was a land of hope and burden, a place where dreams and loneliness intertwined. At 24, Daniel was both idealistic and weary. He carried with him a second-hand suitcase, a heart full of ambition, and the quiet weight of his family's expectations back home. By day, he studied architecture at UCLA. By night, he washed dishes at a small Vietnamese restaurant to pay rent and send money to his aging parents. His life was modest, yet his dreams were vast. On a bright summer morning, Daniel made his way to the Getty Center, an architectural gem perched on the hills of Los Angeles. That day, an exhibition of contemporary photography was taking place. To most, it was an event of art and leisure. To Daniel, it was a chance to seek inspiration for his thesis project. Inside the gallery, the space glowed with white walls and focused lights. People's footsteps echoed softly as murmurs in English, Spanish, Chinese, and Italian filled the air like overlapping notes of music. Daniel wandered until his gaze froze on a single photograph, a shot of the California coastline at sunset. The colors were vivid, crimson sun melting into the Pacific, waves shimmering with gold. But what caught Daniel was not the technique. It was the soul of the picture, the solitude hidden beneath its beauty. The photograph whispered a silent ache, as if the ocean itself longed for someone it could never embrace. He stood motionless, almost absorbed into the image. "You like this one too," a voice spoke gently behind him. Daniel turned. A young woman stood there, tall and graceful. Her blonde hair caught the light like strands of sunlight itself. Her eyes were a striking green-blue, deep and calm like a hidden lake. Around her neck hung an old leather-strapped camera, worn, imperfect, but alive with stories. "Yes," Daniel said after a pause, his voice tinged with surprise. "It feels like a sad song without words." She smiled, her lips curving into a playful arc. "Most people ask me what lens I used, but you talk about feelings. Interesting, I'm Emily Rossi, and yes, this photo is mine." Daniel blinked. "Yours? That explains it. I've never seen the ocean captured this way, as if it has a soul." Emily laughed softly, the kind of laugh that warmed the room without trying. "Thank you. Few people stop long enough to listen to it." "I guess I stopped because I'm a foreigner here," Daniel admitted. "Looking at this ocean, I saw myself, beautiful maybe, but lonely. The sunset doesn't last long, does it?" Their eyes met then, not for long, but long enough. In the crowded gallery, with voices and footsteps all around, it felt as if the world had stepped aside, leaving only the two of them in a fragile silence. That evening, they left the exhibition together. The streets of Los Angeles glowed in the sinking light. The air carried the scent of citrus blossoms. They talked endlessly, about childhoods, about dreams, about the strange ways life had brought them here. Daniel told her about the red-tiled roofs of his hometown in Vietnam, the cicadas on hot summer afternoons, the boy who once flew kites across endless fields. Emily shared memories of her Italian roots, the little towns where she had first picked up her father's camera, and her dream of traveling the world to capture fleeting moments. When the sun finally touched the horizon, Daniel drove Emily to Santa Monica Beach. The ocean roared as the sky burned with scarlet hues. They sat together on the sand, quiet at first, simply watching the waves crash and retreat. Then Emily lifted her camera and clicked. Daniel, lost in thought, became the subject of her frame, his profile set against the horizon, his eyes fixed on the boundless sea. "This is the first photo I've ever taken of you," Emily whispered, smiling faintly. "One day, when you look back, you'll remember. The ocean in California doesn't only shine with sunlight, It keeps the memories we can't forget. Daniel said nothing, but inside him, something stirred. A thread, invisible yet undeniable, had tied them together in that moment. He didn't know it then. He couldn't. But that evening's golden light was not just a beginning. It was the kind of beginning that already carried within it the seed of an ending. Chapter 2: Days of Passion. The weeks that followed their first meeting became a whirlwind of colors and emotions, like a film rolling endlessly under the California sun. For Daniel, the city that once felt cold and indifferent suddenly glowed with warmth. The streets of Los Angeles seemed softer, the ocean deeper, the skis wider, because now, by his side, there was Emily. They met almost every weekend. Sometimes they wandered through Santa Monica, their laughter mingling with the waves as seagulls circled above. Sometimes they drove out to Malibu, where Emily taught Daniel how to hold a camera, showing him how to let light slip into the lens as if capturing a secret of the world. One afternoon, they strolled hand in hand through Griffith Observatory. From the hill, the entire city stretched out before them, an endless map of light and motion. Emily leaned her head on Daniel's shoulder and whispered, "Do you ever feel like this city never sleeps, yet it's lonelier than anywhere else?" Daniel looked at her. "Yes, but with you, it doesn't feel lonely anymore." Her lips curved into a faint smile. That smile, gentle, unassuming, etched itself into Daniel's heart like the most permanent of tattoos. They spent evenings on the rooftop of Emily's apartment in downtown LA, where string lights glowed softly above them. Daniel would cook simple Vietnamese dishes, PH letter 1 EDF, fried spring rolls, or just rice with stir-fried vegetables. Emily loved it, saying each bite felt like a piece of Daniel's home. She, in return, brewed him Italian coffee, bitter but rich, the kind that lingered long after the last sip. There were nights when Emily pulled Daniel into spontaneous adventures, driving along Pacific Coast Highway at midnight, windows down, the salty breeze in their faces, music blaring loud enough to drown out their worries. Daniel, who once lived by careful routines, learned what it meant to be reckless, free, alive. One Sunday morning, they drove to Napa Valley. Amid the rolling hills of vineyards, Emily set up her camera while Daniel sketched the scenery in his worn-out notebook. She teased him, saying he looked too serious, and he teased her back, calling her Miss Sunset for her obsession with chasing the perfect dusk. When the golden light bathed the fields, Emily turned to Daniel. Her hair shimmered like threads of fire, and her eyes, those deep, calm eyes, seemed to hold an entire universe. "I want to capture moments like this forever," she whispered. "But cameras can only take pictures. What I really want is to keep them here." She gently placed her hand over Daniel's chest. His heart raced under her touch. He didn't answer, because no words could express what he felt. Instead, he simply held her hand against his chest, as if promising silently that she would always remain there. That night, under the clear sky dusted with stars, they kissed for the first time. It was hesitant at first, then deeper, fuller, like two souls recognizing each other after lifetimes apart. The air smelled of wine and earth, the breeze carried the distant hum of crickets, and for a fleeting eternity, time seemed to stop. From that moment on, their love grew like wildfire, passionate, unstoppable. Daniel knew his life had changed forever. The boy who once wandered through California with nothing but dreams had now found a reason to belong. And Emily, she had found in Daniel not just a muse, but a companion who listened to the silence between her words, who saw her not as a photographer, but as a fragile, beautiful soul. Yet in the glow of those passionate days, neither of them saw the shadow quietly approaching. A shadow that, one day, would test the very essence of their love. Chapter 3: The First Cracks. Their love, once burning like a brilliant flame, began to enter a new phase. The fire was still warm, still passionate, but even in the most beautiful of fires, tiny fissures can appear, so small at first, yet undeniable. Daniel grew busier each day. At school, professors pressed him to complete his final architecture project. At the restaurant, the workload grew heavier, night shifts stretching long into dawn, leaving dark circles under his eyes. He knew he couldn't falter, for every dollar earned not only kept him afloat in California, but also helped support his aging parents back in Vietnam. Emily's life, meanwhile, was surging forward in a different rhythm. After her photograph was displayed at the Getty, galleries across Los Angeles began to notice her. More invitations, more meetings, more opportunities filled her days. Her artistic career was unfolding, yet amidst the glow, what she craved most was Daniel's presence, a steady shoulder, a heart to confide in. One evening, tension broke loose inside Emily's apartment. "You're late again," Emily said, her voice heavy with disappointment. "We planned to have dinner together, but by the time you show up, the food's already cold." Daniel sighed, removing the apron, still carrying the faint smell of grease from the restaurant. "I'm sorry. The place was packed tonight. I couldn't just walk out. You know I'd never want to keep you waiting." "I know," Emily cut him off, her green-blue eyes flashing with hurt. "But love can't survive on apologies alone. I need you here, not just the shadow of you that stumbles in exhausted." Daniel fell silent. He wanted to tell her that he needed her just as much, that every weary night became bearable only because of her smile. But the words stuck in his throat. The invisible weight of responsibility had stolen his voice. They ate dinner in silence. Outside the window, Los Angeles glittered in its endless glow, but inside the room, the light seemed dimmed, swallowed by an unseen distance. Another time, as they walked along Santa Monica's shore, Emily paused at the edge of the waves. "I've been invited to New York," she said. "A gallery wants me for an exhibition. It's a huge opportunity." Daniel forced a smile. "That's wonderful. I'm happy for you. But I want you to come with me." She turned to him, eyes full of hope. "We could experience it together, you with your sketches, me with my camera. Think of what it could mean." Daniel shook his head, sorrow flickering across his face. "I can't. You know I don't have the money, and besides, I have school, work. I can't just walk away from it all." Emily bit her lip, struggling to contain her frustration. "It's always responsibility, always duty. But what about us? Do you ever think about what we need?" The ocean wind whipped around them, carrying the roar of waves crashing on the sand. Daniel lowered his gaze, silent. Too many words swirled inside him, but none found their way out. From that moment on, an invisible distance began to stretch between them. Conversations grew shorter. Replies came slower. Their embraces no longer lingered the way they once did. Daniel loved Emily. That had never changed. But his love was being tested by the harsh weight of reality. One part duty, one part dream. Emily loved Daniel too, with all her heart. Yet at times, she felt as though she was in love with a man bound by obligations, not one who dared to live fearlessly for love. And so, the first cracks, small, fragile but real, etched themselves into a love story once thought untouchable. Chapter 4: Shadows of Distance. Autumn arrived in California with a chill in the air and skis brushed in shades of gold and amber. For many couples, it was the most romantic season. Maple leaves drifting along the streets, quiet afternoons spent hand in hand beneath the fatting light. But for Daniel and Emily, that autumn became a trial. Emily's life grew busier by the day. She flew to New York, San Francisco, then back again, her schedule crammed with exhibitions and meetings. At first, her video calls with Daniel were filled with laughter and stories, but slowly, they shortened into hurried exchanges. "Have you eaten yet? Did you sleep enough?" Questions that once carried warmth now sounded routine, powerless against the widening distance between them. Daniel, meanwhile, was buried in responsibility. Days consumed by his architecture thesis, nights drowned in the clatter of dishes and the grease-stained air of the restaurant. He had neither time nor strength to fly out to Emily, nor the energy to hold on to the fragile thread of connection between them. One weekend evening, Emily returned to Los Angeles after a long trip. Excited, she called Daniel immediately. "Daniel, I'm back. I have so much to tell you. I met incredible artists and..." On the other end, his voice faltered. I'm sorry, Emily. I have a night shift tonight, and tomorrow's my big presentation. I really can't make it." Silence stretched between them. Emily bit her lip, holding back tears. "You're always busy, always an excuse. Do you ever think about what I need, Daniel?" "I know," Daniel's voice trembled. "I know I'm letting you down, but can't you see? If I stop working, if I stop pushing, everything falls apart. I can't disappoint my family, and I can't lose you either." "But you're losing me, piece by piece," Emily whispered before ending the call. That night, Daniel stood by the sink full of dishes, his chest heavy with regret. For the first time, he realized that love wasn't only tested by poverty or distance, but also by silence, by the helplessness of being unable to give each other what they truly needed. A week later, Emily showed up at the restaurant. She sat quietly in a corner, watching him work, his rough hands moving swiftly, sweat glistening on his brow, his eyes tired yet determined. When Daniel finally noticed her, his heart stumbled. He hurried over, words caught on the edge of his tongue, but Emily only shook her head. "I understand now, Daniel. You've chosen your path, and that path doesn't have room for me." Daniel grabbed her hand, gripping it tightly like a drowning man clutching for air. "No, I choose you, but I can't turn my back on my responsibilities. I'm trapped, Emily. All I ask is that you wait." Emily looked into his eyes, where light flickered, desperate and fatting. Slowly, she pulled her hand free. "Wait until when, Daniel? Love can't survive on promises alone." Her words cut into him like a blade. He stood frozen as she walked away, her figure dissolving into the doorway, leaving behind an emptiness vast and unbearable. From that night onward, what separated them was no longer invisible distance, but a quiet wall. They still loved each other deeply, but that love flickered like a candle trembling in the wind, its flame fragile, close to extinguishing. Autumn slipped away, carrying with it cold evenings, sharp winds, and unspoken sorrows. Chapter 5: The Breakup. Winter in California was unlike anywhere else. It was not brutally cold, but it carried a damp, lingering chill that seeped into the bones. The rain fell for hours, painting the streets in shimmering streaks of light as neon signs bled into the wet asphalt. The once vibrant city now felt muted, subdued, wrapped in a melancholy fog. And in that heavy silence, the love between Daniel and Emily flickered like a dying candle, its flame fragile, its smoke thick with sorrow. Emily could feel the distance growing between them. She still called him, still sent messages, still tried to hold on. But their conversations had become brief, dry, drained of warmth. Daniel, buried under the weight of family obligations and the relentless grind of work, grew colder with every passing day. Emily, lost in her endless rehearsals and concerts, yearned for empathy, for someone to listen, for the simple comfort of being understood. But Daniel was no longer there to answer. They tried, again and again, to talk it through, to fix what was breaking. Yet every conversation that was meant to heal only carved the distance deeper. Their dates, once full of laughter, became battlegrounds of blame and frustration. Daniel wanted Emily to slow down, to stay, to anchor herself to him. Emily wanted Daniel to let go of his chains, to step out of the shadows and walk with her toward the light of her dreams. They wanted different things. One late December night, Emily sent Daniel a message. "Meet me at Santa Monica, at the place where it all began. I need to tell you something one last time." Daniel was late. When he arrived, Emily was already standing on the sand, her long hair whipped into a storm by the wind, her frame swallowed by a wool coat. The ocean roared behind her, waves crashing violently against the shore as though they, too, sensed the inevitable. For a long time, they stood in silence. Only the waves spoke, only the wind howled. Emily finally broke the stillness, her voice trembling as if each word was torn from her heart. "Daniel, we can't go on like this anymore." Daniel froze, his eyes widening in disbelief. "What are you saying, Emily? We're just going through a rough patch. Things will get better. I promise I'll change. Just trust me." Emily shook her head, tears spilling down her pale cheeks. "I have trusted you. I have waited. But love cannot survive on promises alone. We're losing ourselves, Daniel. You're drowning in your responsibilities. I'm suffocating in my loneliness. We see each other less, but we fight more. That isn't love anymore." He stepped closer, gripping her hands, his own trembling from fear more than from the cold. I need you, Emily. I can't live without you. I'll do anything, I'll fix everything. Just don't leave me. Emily gazed into his eyes, the same eyes that once gave her peace, that once felt like home. But tonight, they held only exhaustion, worry, and fragility, like paper ready to tear. Her voice cracked as she whispered, Daniel, I love you. God, I still love you. But this love hurts too much now. It no longer gives me freedom or joy. If we stay, we'll only destroy each other. I want to keep the beautiful memories before they turn into scars. Daniel pulled her into his arms, his voice breaking apart. Don't go, please, Emily. We've shared too much. Give me a little more time, just a little more. Emily cupped his face in her trembling hands, her touch tender yet final. If love needs so much time to prove itself, then maybe it isn't love anymore. She let go. Turning away, she walked into the darkness. The wind tore through her hair, carrying her figure farther and farther until she was just a blur swallowed by fog. Daniel collapsed to his knees on the cold sand, his chest heaving, his eyes burning as he watched her disappear. Emily, he screamed, his voice raw, his cry crashing into the night air, swallowed by the relentless ocean. But the sea was merciless, answering only with its furious roar. The waves crashed again and again, as if determined to bury his voice, his grief, and his broken heart beneath their eternal rhythm. That night, Santa Monica, once the birthplace of their love, once a canvas of laughter and stolen kisses, became the graveyard of their story. Emily walked away. Daniel stayed behind. One chose freedom, the other was left with ruin. And from that moment on, they belonged to two different worlds, forever apart. Chapter 6, The Last Sunset. Time passed, but for Daniel, it no longer carried the power to heal. Days blurred into one another, waking up in an empty apartment, driving down streets where Emily once sat beside him, returning at night to a silence that pressed down on him like a weight. The photographs of them still hung on the walls, Emily's radiant smile frozen in time, now nothing more than a sharp blade twisting inside his chest. He often found himself back at Santa Monica in the late afternoons. Sitting on the sand where she once turned her back on him, Daniel let the cold waves wash over his feet, as though the ocean alone could understand the depth of his loss. He no longer screamed her name. He no longer begged the waves to return her. Instead, he simply watched the sun sink into the horizon, its brilliant reds and oranges dissolving into shadow, beauty so breathtaking it hurt. Emily, meanwhile, was living the dream she had always chased. Concerts across cities, sold-out tickets, dazzling lights, thunderous applause. She had the freedom she longed for, and the world admired her. But every night after the music faded and the hotel room fell silent, the emptiness inside her grew heavier. She had chosen freedom, but freedom came with a price: loneliness. In the middle of a cheering crowd, she still heard the echo of Santa Monica's waves, still saw Daniel's eyes in her sleep. Months turned into years. Neither reached out. No calls, no messages. They truly belonged to different worlds now. And yet, deep down, the love they once shared never really died. It was only buried, suffocated beneath time, pain, and pride. One spring evening, Daniel returned again to Santa Monica. That sunset was unlike any other. The sky was a canvas of crimson and gold, the last rays painting the sea with shimmering light. Sitting there, he thought of Emily. He thought of the moment she walked away, of the words that shattered his heart. Closing his eyes, he whispered to himself, maybe love isn't about holding on, maybe it's about letting go. Sometimes, the truest love is giving someone the freedom to chase their dreams, even if it means you're no longer part of them. A single tear slid down his cheek, blending with the salt of the ocean air. And far away, in a distant hotel after a performance, Emily stood by her window, watching a sunset just as brilliant. Her chest tightened as the colors burned across the horizon, and she whispered softly into the silence, Daniel, I still love you, but maybe love isn't always about walking together until the end. Sometimes it's about stopping, so neither of us loses ourselves. They never met again. Santa Monica remained the keeper of their memories, sweet and painful, radiant and tragic. The lesson. Love doesn't always end with happiness. Sometimes, loving deeply means learning to let go. Love is not only about being together, but about giving each other the freedom to be who they truly are. Some people enter our lives to teach us how to love, how to hurt, and then they leave so that we may grow. Santa Monica witnessed a beautiful love story, but it also witnessed their farewell. And the lesson it leaves behind is this: love with all your heart, but be brave enough to let go when love no longer brings joy.
Thank you so much for watching until the end. Don't forget to subscribe to support Elena, storyteller, and stay tuned for the next heartfelt video.